Remember being 7 on a Saturday morning, your breakfast going cold because you couldn't look away from the TV, and there it was, that toy, the car that hit the ramp and flew, or figurines that moved on their own mid-battle, just totally alive. The kids on the screen were having the best day anyone had ever had. And you knew, with your whole little heart, that if you could just have that thing, that day would be yours too. So you waited. Birthday, Christmas, however long it took. And finally it was in your hands, and you tore open the box, and it just sat there. The car bumped into a wall and stopped. The figurines were smaller, and they looked stiff, and their faces didn't do anything. That day never came, and you felt something you didn't have a word for yet. A little confusing ache deep in your heart. You'd believed a story with everything you had, but that story wasn't true. We all have a memory like that, and back then, you knew something was wrong. You knew someone had taken your desires and used them against you. But then you got older, and somehow, maybe you couldn't name the day, but you stopped being the kid opening the box, and you became the commercial. The lighting, the angle, the pitch, the profile, the version of you that gets the day, instead of the one who has to live it. And the people who believed you are standing in the kitchen right now, holding a box of macaroni and cheese, feeling that exact ache, thinking, this isn't at all what the commercial made it look like. That betrayal that broke your heart at 7, you hand out now without blinking. What happened to us? What is wrong with us? Someone was asking those very same questions 2,500 years ago in China, and he said, if you want to avoid being that person, you should be like a blade that stays sharp, or a boar that won't back down, or a block of wood, the same all the way through and through. He proposed being a person that says less than they could, because they want every word to be true. And those things that he held up as the ideals come close to the thing that this whole episode is centered around, a bone-deep reverence for the humanity of others. But he knew there was a catch. You can't love people who've stopped trusting you, and nobody trusts a commercial. So before any of this beautiful stuff, there's a simpler question, the one the 7-year-old already knew how to answer. What's actually in the box? Exploring the Analects, Episode 8, Passage 13.27. Disclaimer. Serving suggestion. Hey folks, this is Elliot Bernstein. Thanks for joining me for Episode 8 of Exploring the Analects. Today we'll be talking about Passage 13.27 of the Analects, a 6-character phrase in our first encounter with the core Confucian concept of Ren, or as we'll translate it today, human-heartedness. We'll be doing a deep dive into this concept, as well as discussing 4 additional qualities, Gang, Yi, Mu, and No. These qualities are all centered around the idea of being forthright, and according to passage 13.27, they're sort of prerequisites for anyone who wants to act with a deep sense of love, even a sense of reverence, for the humanity of others. A quick note to my loyal listeners before we get started. I recently set up Analects.net, where you can listen to each episode and follow along with an episode guide. Episode guides include Chinese characters for the passages, as well as other words mentioned in the episode. I've also put up the full text of the Analects with smart searching and pop-up definitions. Check it out and let me know what you think. You can reach me at elliot@analects.net. That's Elliot with 2 L's and 2 T's, but you'll probably reach me no matter how you write it. Since I've given a longer introduction to the podcast in the beginning of the first 7 episodes, I'll start to cut down on this a bit and just mention at a higher level what we do here. We're working our way through the Analects, a collection of hundreds of passages written by the followers of Confucius between the 5th and 3rd centuries BCE. Each episode delves into one or more passages. We read the passages in Chinese and English, explain their basic meaning, then discuss the historical and cultural context to provide a deeper understanding. After that, we analyze the language found in the passages as a way to learn new words and phrases in classical Chinese and modern Mandarin. Let's get started. This is my informal interpretation of passage 13.27. Remember, this isn't a translation, but I wanted to capture something about the spirit of the passage that sticks with you for the rest of the episode. You shouldn't need a serving suggestion disclaimer on your packaging if you want people to understand you. We've all had this experience. You're at the supermarket and you see a new item, maybe some mac and cheese. The box shows a perfectly crispy layer of baked goodness on top, velvety sauce breaking through in just the right way, and a delicious turkey dinner with all your favorite fixings. Just imagine it looks awesome, whatever awesome means to you. So you throw it in the cart. Now nobody's thinking, yeah, that definitely comes with the turkey and everything, but your expectations are elevated. You get home and open it up, and the picture on the box bears no relationship to that sad frozen reality inside. That's when you look a little closer and see the disclaimer, serving suggestion, in small white text on the bottom right-hand corner. That studio lighting, the strategically placed garnish, the steam photoshopped in, who is all just a marketing ploy to get your hard-earned dollars. Now, I don't have any corporate sponsors for this show, and even if I had a dream that I did, I'd probably wake up laughing. But if I did have one for this episode, maybe it would be Bob's Red Mill. If you're not familiar with the brand, imagine a clear plastic bag full of rolled oats or some other similar grain product. No pictures, not much design, just an image of Farmer Bob and the product name, rolled oats, on the front. Look in the bag. There's the oats. What you see is what you get. The way I see it, that's what 13.27 is all about. Now that that's covered, I'll read the passage in a modern Mandarin pronunciation, and then we'll follow up with a more faithful translation into English. 子曰刚毅木訥近仁. The master said, if one is resolute in making decisions and has the grit to follow through, if they choose simplicity in both appearance and words, they may approach having human-heartedness. By the way, unlike in previous episodes, I haven't taken this translation directly from one source or the other. This one is more of my own, but it does use some of the important ideas teased out by Peimin Ni and Edward Slingerland in their translations, so I encourage you to check those out if you want more perspective. Let's move on and dig into the meaning of the passage itself. This is a list of 4 qualities, Gang, Yi, Mu, and Ne, that Confucius considers important prerequisites for having the core Confucian value of Ren, or human-heartedness. Each one of these qualities has an element of simile that helps us understand the meaning of the quality. Now I'll work through them one by one. Gang is the quality of a metal blade that's firm, unbending, and stays sharp over time. If a person is gang, they're resolute in their decisions, and they don't flip-flop. I guess even Confucius knew John Kerry would lose that 2004 election. Next up is Yi. This is an image of a wild boar bristling when threatened by a dangerous weapon. Someone whose E has grit. They see something in front of them that threatens to stop them, and they don't turn and run. They fight back. The person described in the passage is Gang, so they've decided what to do, and they're E, so now they're going to follow through. After E is Mu. Mu is an image of a tree. Wood in its rawest form is solid, uncarved, and most importantly, exactly the same on the inside as it is on the outside. Its appearance is plain and simple. That's the Bob's Red Mill package. Its exterior shows you exactly what its interior contains. No surprises. Finally, we have No. This one isn't really an image like the others, but understanding the character's components tells you pretty clearly what it's about. This is a combination of yan, speech on the left, and nei, inside on the right. So you could think of words being kept inside of you, or words coming from inside of you. A lot of translators rendered this as reticence, and it seems fair to say that hesitating to speak is part of the character's meaning. But in my opinion, we should focus on it as the opposite of making ostentatious claims or being glib. In this case, we're talking about simple and straightforward speech, words that might not come out quickly due to the fact that they represent what's deep inside. And again, that's what the bag of oats is all about. It says rolled oats on the outside, and that's all it says, because that's exactly what's on the inside. To recap, the qualities we just discussed are all centered around valuing consistency and forthrightness, and the passage urges readers to practice being consistent and straightforward in their decisions, actions, self-presentation, and speech. Now let's move on to talk about Ren, or the idea of human-heartedness. This is one of those terms like Xunzi, Dao, or De. It's so completely central to the Analects that no one or two words in English is going to fully capture its meaning. Let me paraphrase Professor Peiman Ni's introduction to his book, Understanding the Analects of Confucius, to show you what I mean. Translators have variously rendered Ren as nobility, Graham, benevolence, Lau and Leg, virtue, Leg, goodness, Wally and Slingerland, humanity, Chan and Huang, humanness, Dawson, co-humanity, Peter A. Budberg, authoritative person conduct, Ames and Rosemont in their translation of the Analects, consummatory conduct, Ames and Rosemont in their more recent translation of the Xiao Jing, the Book of Filial Piety, or as they put it, the classic of family reverence, and so on. Well, that was a mouthful. Anyway, there's no single passage in the Analects that clearly defines Ren, and it seems to mean one thing in passages about personal relationships, something else in passages about politics, and sometimes neither of those things in more general passages. The TLDR here is, we're not going to be able to pin Ren down completely today, and we'll be having many, many more conversations about its meaning in the future episodes. For now, just keep this translation of human-heartedness in mind. Just to give you a little bit more flavor about what Ren means, let me tell you a bit about its components. The character is composed of two elements, Ren, person on the left, and R, the number 2, on the right. When I try to find some meaningful way to describe the combination of these two elements, I come up with ideas like between two people, or double personishness. Actually, everything is not that far off from that Budberg rendering of co-humanity, so we need to keep this interpersonal quality in mind. Another interesting note is that archaeological discoveries such as the Guodian Chujian or the Guodian bamboo texts show a historical variant of the character that consists of a body component above a heart component. So this quality is something you can cultivate deep within your heart, a kind of ingrained reverence or love for the humanity of others. On the whole, I'd say that human-heartedness sums it up fairly well. Let's wrap up this section by explaining what those 4 qualities we discussed have to do with human-heartedness. If you recall the passage, it says you can approach human-heartedness if you have these 4 qualities. Well, think back to our misleading packaging example from before. How do you feel when that happens to you? Deceived? Confused? Having lost trust? If it's really bad, would you buy that brand again, or would you look for another to rely on? According to Confucius, the same thing is going to happen if you try to cooperate with other people, but your words or actions are inconsistent. If you say one thing, then do another. If one day you make up your mind, then completely reverse course the next. If you're constantly saying what you think people want to hear, rather than what you really believe, you'll lose people's trust. People will feel they don't understand or they don't know who you really are, and they're going to move on to someone who seems more reliable. To bring things full circle, you can't develop the quality of human-heartedness if you have no humanity around you to love. If the mac and cheese lies to you, you just buy a different brand. But if you lie to people, not even with intent, but just by being inconsistent, by being all packaging, they're going to move on. And then whose humanity is left to cherish? So if you want to approach being human-hearted, Confucius insists that you first have to learn to make decisions and follow through on them, and that you choose simplicity in both your appearance and your words. Build trust this way, then start working on your Ren. Next, I'll review some of the thematic and stylistic aspects of 13.27. This part isn't so much about the meaning of the passage, it's more about how it ties into other parts of the Analects, Confucianism, and Chinese history and culture as a whole. What I find most striking about 13.27 is its use of simile. Of the 4 characters, Gang, Yi, Mu, and Ne, 3 are tangible in nature: the durable blade, the bristling boar, and the solid block of wood, all embody qualities that we should strive to cultivate in ourselves. We find this appreciation of nature in quite a few passages of the Analects. Pei Min Ni points to this as what is called bi-de, or comparing virtues, and gives the additional example of passage 6.23, in which Confucius explains those with wisdom enjoy water, and those with human-heartedness enjoy mountains. Writes that while science interprets human beings as part of nature, the bi-de approach of Confucius interprets nature in terms of humanity. A similar example is given in the 3rd century BCE by the post-Mencius Confucian philosopher Xunzi. In passage 30.4 of his eponymous work, the Xunzi, he recounts Confucius saying that jade is valued not because it is rare, but because of its qualities. It shines through with warm, smooth texture. That is human-heartedness. It is fully embodied with consistent veins. That is wisdom. It is hard, strong, and would not bend. That is appropriateness. It is pure, simple, and not injurious. That is conduct. And it would rather break but not subdue. That is courage. This tradition appears to have started long before Confucius's time, and appears in the Shi Jing, or the Book of Odes, a work full of songs from the Western Zhou circa 1000 BCE. Passage 1.15 quotes these lyrics from the book. Carving and filing, grinding and polishing. These are processes used to refine bone and jade into beautiful works of art. And of course, the point is not to celebrate the qualities of these miraculous natural substances, but to instruct the reader, or the audience of this song, to refine their skills and qualities until they have reached a fine polish and can themselves be considered masterpieces. If you're interested in more bi-de, check out the passage 5.10 about rotten wood, 6.6 about the calf of a plow ox, and 12.19 about the grass bending when the wind blows. In each case, The qualities of nature are used to explain behavior or give instruction. Aside from the heavy use of simile in 13.27, there's a strong connection to concepts of zhi, or raw material, and wen, or polish, which we discussed extensively in episode 4. You might recall that while Confucius encourages his students to work on their polish or cultural refinement, he also strongly warns them against doing so at the expense of the quality of their raw material. That message is reiterated in 13.27. That box of mac and cheese with the fancy picture on it, it's all polish, no substance. And being plain in speech and appearance, that may be substance at the expense of polish. But anyone needs that solid foundation before they can properly develop their polish. Once you've got it, the refinements you make go toward developing the quality of your human-heartedness, not toward impressing people simply for the sake of impressing them. The final point I'll make here is that since this passage is a strong warning against being too clever or too flashy, it has a strong connection to passage 1.3, where we read, "Clever words and insinuating appearances are seldom associated with human-heartedness." Clever words, often also referred to as ning or glibness within the Analects, will be a major topic for discussion in future episodes. Ning is an interesting contrast to ren. With ren, we're focused on a polish of character, whereas with ning, we're focused on a polish of words. Ning is mentioned in numerous passages throughout the Analects, but I particularly recommend reading 6.16 for a lamentation about how the whole world seems to overvalue clever words and striking appearances. Last up, let's look at the characters in this passage to learn a bit of vocabulary. We've already covered most of the characters, but I'll discuss them from a bit more of a linguistic perspective here. Gang means firm or unyielding, and is the opposite of ruo, or gentle or flexible. As mentioned above, it's the quality of a durable blade. In modern Mandarin, it's often used to mean just or barely, as in "刚刚好," just right, or "刚才," just a moment ago. Yi, staunch or resolute, which I rendered as grit above, can actually be combined with gang, and it's not a bad guess that it's due to the influence of this passage. In that case, it means resolute or steadfast. But outside of this combination, it's not a common character in modern Mandarin. Mu, I'm sure you can tell just based on its shape if you're looking at the episode guide, is an image of a tree. And in the context of this passage, it is used to mean plain or unadorned. In modern Mandarin, it's not usually used to mean tree or plain. If you're talking about a tree, you're more likely to use the word shu. Instead, it's used in a combination with other characters to refer to wood, as in mutou, wood, or mucai, timber or lumber. Ne isn't a common character in modern Mandarin. There are other ways to say someone is reticent or hesitant to speak, the most common of which is probably chunmo. Jin is quite common today, and still has the same meaning of nearness or recentness. Kaojin means to get next to something or to come close. Jindai Lishi means modern history, a subject that's near and dear to my heart. But don't confuse Jindai with Xiandai, another word meaning modern. History can't be Xiandai, because that refers to now, and of course, the history of now hasn't been written yet. I'd cover Ren here a little bit more as well, but we're going to be coming back to it so often that we'll mostly leave it till then. There's just this one very interesting note. This one goes out to real Chinese nerds. It's about the variant of Ren that I mentioned earlier, the one found in the Guodian bamboo texts. I'll quote Peiman Ni again here. He writes, "Recently discovered bamboo scripts from the early Han reveal that Ren was also written in a different way. This less commonly known character for Ren consists of two parts, a cursive way of writing body, shen, on top, and the heart-mind, xin, below. In classic Chinese, the word for body also serves the function of indicating self. The combination of body and heart-mind suggests that Ren is not just a subjective feeling. It has to be saturated in the body to become a bodily disposition, which allows the compassionate self to manifest through loving and caring human conduct in the external world, and at the same time make the external world part of the self. That's beautiful. All right, folks, that's it for this time. Again, I'm your host, Elliot Bernstein. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Exploring the Analects. Don't forget to visit analects.net to check out the episode guide, and drop me a line at elliot@analects.net if you've got any questions. Join me again next time when we'll discuss passage 15.4 and meet Confucius's best-known warrior disciple, Zilu. See you there.